Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is John with Good Burger Reviews, and I'm here to do a brand new 2025 movie review. And the movie is Borderline. This movie is written and directed by Jimmy Warden. It stars Samara Weaving, Ray Nicholson, Eric Dane, Jimmy Fails, Terrence Kelly, and Patrick Cox. The basic premise is Samara Weaving stars as Sophia, who is a famous rock star who is in, I guess, she reminded me of Taylor Swift. And she is got a bodyguard who's played by Eric Dane. And there is someone who I guess is a borderline psychopath who's fallen in love with her and chasing her, capturing her in her home, and that's Paul, played by Ray Nicholson. There's a love interest for Samara Weaving, played by Jimmy Fails. I think Terrence Kelly played the priest, and Patrick Cox was Paul's assistant. Okay, let me start off by saying this one, it was labeled as a horror comedy, and I didn't really find it funny. It actually was it was strange. It was different. It was the whole tone. It was the whole execution of this one, the way it was put together. It was just it was an odd. So it was kind of hard to follow the story initially because it starts off with the end. Ray Nicholson as Paul says, I hate when movies end with a start, but it starts off with the end, and you see Samara Weaving and Ray Nicholson getting married, I think. A few movies have pulled that recently, where they give you the ending, like in Companion, where she says, I killed him, and I think, oh, we're starting off with the end. In Companion, it was done well. In this movie, not so much. So Ray Nicholson plays this borderline psychopath who basically breaks into Samara Weaving's home, and she's this famous pop star, though they don't do much to really show what type of pop star she really is. They don't even, other than her singing this random song in the middle, which is not even one of her songs, the only thing that reminded me of her being a pop star at all was like, she just kind of seemed to act and talk like Taylor Swift. I don't know Taylor Swift that well, but she just gave me that Taylor Swift vibe, though I think they were pushing for like Madonna or Cyndi Lauper. I don't even know what they were really trying to go for her character. But her character was unlikable. So Samara Weaving, I just, I liked her in Scream 6, but I don't know if I've been a fan of her. She just did Azrael recently, which I thought was a miss. I wasn't a huge fan of Ready or Not, though I didn't hate it. So, her character here was it just didn't seem to fit the dynamic of what this was. And then the other main antagonist was the bodyguard, who's played by Eric Dane, and he's like a middle-aged man, father, with a young daughter at home, and the young daughter at home plays a role in this movie as well. I guess Ray Nicholson had stabbed the bodyguard, and that was like 6 months prior, and then I guess he was put away, and then he escapes, and he teams up with this guy, this really big guy with an eye patch, and a skinny young girl, and they basically are going to break into Samara Weaving's home to basically take over. And there's something really wrong with Ray Nicholson's character, and that's kind of a problem I have with this whole movie in the end. And I'll wrap it up with that part. But like, he's delusional. Like he doesn't understand reality. So like, he wants to marry Samara Weaving, and that's all he kind of sees. And when he's on screen, I think he's meant to be comical, but I never found anything he really did too comical. It might have been a few moments here and there where I chuckled over him, but it really wasn't um, funny. And Ray Nicholson, he's got big shoes to stand in. Being the son of Jack Nicholson, and sometimes I feel like he tries to have these like Jack Nicholson mannerisms and the facial things. And and when he was in Smile 2, I feel like he pulled off that role quite well. And the Nicholson in him benefited him there because of the smile and the creep factor that he played in that role. But in this, as a main character, like he's got a lot of weight on his shoulders for this role, and it just wasn't coming off right. And I think it may not have a lot to do with his acting specifically. I didn't feel like his acting was too terrible. I just felt like maybe it was more in what was written, what the story was. So Ray Nicholson has them all basically trapped in this house, and it's kind of complicated. It's a very complicated plan of how they lure people away from the house to bring them back. So another security guard that wasn't really much of a main character, but he's watching a lot on the security cameras, and then he gets killed early on. And then they have to lure the other bodyguard away from the house, and they kind of do it in a complicated manner by dragging his daughter and wife into the scenario, and they kidnap him. And the one and only funny scene, the really funniest moment to me, wasn't even a main character. So they lure the bodyguard away, and he's going home, but his wife and daughter are home alone, and this police officer shows up at the house to assist them because they had called and reported a stranger being outside of their house. And he kind of somewhat dismisses it, but he sticks around. But he's waiting downstairs, outside out front, and all of a sudden, while he's standing out there, he breaks into this little Broadway routine. I guess he's trying to break into Broadway on the side, and it's very funny the way he just sings, and then this jogger walks by and he's like, pauses, like, we've all done this type of stuff where we're doing something out and about, and we're, it's kind of goofy and embarrassing, and all of a sudden someone comes by and like we just freeze like we weren't doing that, and as soon as they go away, we go right back into our little routine. That's exactly what he does. I thought that was comical. I actually laughed out loud in that part, and there was very little laugh out louds in this movie. They end up all convening back at the house, and it just, I felt like this story just wasn't put together well. It just seemed like there was a scene here, a scene there, and it kind of all, it does all run to an end, where they're ending up. And Ray Nicholson is trying to get, married to Samara Weaving. And they end up all in this church, in the church. And he's so delusional that sometimes he thinks he's seeing Samara Weaving, but it's someone else. And that played off a little bit in the beginning. And in the opening scene, Eric Dane and him are at the house, and when he stabs him, but he believes it's Samara Weaving. And Eric Dane catches on to this quickly and plays along, trying to disarm him. So again, we're at that last scene, and they're in this church. They had kidnapped a priest. He kidnapped the bodyguard's whole family. And they ended up, he gets confused again, and there's this other dude there, played by Jimmy Fails, who's like the real love interest of Samara Weaving. And, him and her never had a real connection. It was so awkward, their connection. But, he's who's there. And I guess at some point in the transition from the mansion that she lived in to the church, Ray Nicholson gets confused and believes that Jimmy Fails is the Samara Weaving character. So like this wedding starts off with Jimmy Fails in the blue wedding dress that he had gotten for this whole thing. And that was also meant to be funny, but it didn't come off funny. It was awkward and strange. And of course there's a whole wedding and there's a kiss and everything. And it wasn't, to me, it wasn't funny. It was goofy, but not funny. And there was another awkward scene like that. I remember I had said Samara Weaving had one little song. So this girl that is Ray Nicholson's accomplice confronts her in the house at one point, and all of a sudden they start singing "It's All Coming Back to Me Now" by Celine Dion, and it's just strange. It's like out of the blue, and Samara, I guess maybe it was the same thing where Samara Weaving's trying to play along, maybe to distract her, but like right in the middle of their little beautiful duet, and this girl who was just so random sings amazingly. It's like, who is she and how is she just so talented? She's singing better than the pop star in this song. And I thought, okay, whatever. But all of a sudden, boom, right in the middle of the song, boom, punches her in the face, just random, and it goes into chaos. So I'm like, this is kind of like chaotic, and I don't know if it was meant to be funny, but it wasn't really funny. It was amusing, but not, it just wasn't funny to me. It wasn't funny. This wasn't funny. So, I mean, what I'm going to say on this is, I feel like as I was watching this, especially towards that weigh-in, and in the very last scene, in the end credit scene, where Jack Nicholson is being driven, or I keep calling him Jack Nicholson, Ray Nicholson's in this car and he's driving away and he kind of starts having a little mental breakdown. I thought, is the whole comedy of this movie supposed to be that this guy's crazy and delusional and creates all this chaos and all this madness and people die? And it's supposed to be funny, but like, this is a serious mental illness that this main character really had, and there's people out there that deal with this type of stuff. How's that funny? To me, that's not funny. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be too crazy about it, but I just thought these type of real scenarios would never really be funny. I mean, if they would have played it more goofy and more like he's crazy, but like not like psychologically, psychopathically crazy, and more just goofy crazy and more leaned into the comedy of this, maybe it would have pulled off as more funny. But it kind of was sad. It was sad. Ray Nicholson's character is just sad. It's a sad state for him. So at the end of the day, this movie it's just not good. I'm not recommending it. I'm not recommending it at all. I mean, there were some amusing parts. I did like Eric Dane. He was good in his bodyguard role, but the part where I didn't like him was his dynamic with his daughter. They just had no chemistry, especially in the one wrap-up scene. There's just no chemistry between those two. So at the end of the day, this one's kind of really generic. Lots of tropes that have been done before, and just mostly not funny or not scary. Not scary. There was a few scenes that were meant to be a little tense and scary, but typical break into a house and terrorize people at home invasion, terror stuff, but nothing was ever that dramatic. Nothing was ever that tense. And so at the end of the day, this one's just rough. I'm gonna give it a spam. I was torn, maybe pushing it up to veggie, but like, nah. This one's not even worth watching or revisiting, really, to me. So, thumbs down. On the other hand, thank you for watching. Oh, I do want to say one other thing. It's funny how this came out the same weekend as Opus, and I just put my review of Opus out, and I thought, oh, in fact, when I was looking into going to the movies this weekend to see Borderline and Opus, I actually got confused and thought maybe they were just one movie, because both movies contain a pop star in it, and a famous pop star in it, and a whole, storyline that involves a pop star and someone with the pop star. And I thought, was it the same movie? And then when I was looking up, I was like, no, wait, there's actually two different movies that involve pop stars that came out this weekend. So check out my review on Opus. I definitely liked Opus better than this. And even though the movies were released the same weekend and have a similar character in it, they're really not the same. Opus was more of a A24 super cult thriller horror, where this was meant to be a horror comedy and just falls flat. So I'll leave it there. Thanks again for watching. Please like, subscribe, and come back